Don't you recognize me, cowboy? I'm your childhood love, said the Apache beauty. Bah! The sun was just starting to dip below the distant hills, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. On the edge of a quiet town in the southwest, a small ranch lay nestled among the open plains. The air smelled of dry grass and horses, and the faint sound of a creek flowing nearby added a peaceful rhythm to the evening. The cowboy, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 30s, moved steadily among the stables, brushing a dark bay horse with careful, practiced strokes. His hands were strong and worn from years of work, but there was a gentleness in the way he treated the animals he cared for. He paused for a moment and looked out over the open field, his mind wandering. Life had been quiet and predictable for him. He had left his hometown many years ago, seeking a simple life where he could focus on the ranch, his horses, and the work that gave him purpose. People in the town knew him as honest, hard-working, and dependable, but few knew about the loneliness he carried. The truth was, he had left behind something, or rather someone, that had never left his heart, even if he had tried to forget.
That evening, the town was busy with preparations for the annual fair. Stalls were being set up, lights strung across the main street, and the scent of fresh bread, roasted corn, and sweet treats filled the air.
Families wandered through the streets, children laughing as they ran past horses and carts, and the sound of music and chatter created a lively, comforting atmosphere. The cowboy had been invited to participate in a small rodeo demonstration, showcasing his skills with horses and ropes. He liked these moments when the town gathered. It reminded him of simpler times and gave him a sense of belonging. As he finished brushing the horse and led it to the corral, he noticed a figure approaching from the crowd, but tense. At first, he thought it was someone he had seen around town before, but something about her movement and the way she carried herself caught his attention. She moved with a quiet confidence, and there was a grace in her steps that made her stand out from the bustling crowd. Her hair shone like dark silk in the sunlight, and her eyes carried a depth that seemed familiar, though he could not immediately place her. She stopped a few feet away, her gaze fixed on him. Burst. Then, with a calm but firm voice, she said words that made his heart skip a beat. "Don't you recognize me, cowboy?" "Psst. I'm your childhood love." The cowboy froze. His hands clenched slightly around the reins of the horse as he tried to make sense of what he had just heard. His mind raced, flipping through years of memories that felt both distant and vivid at the same time. Could it be? After so many years, was it really her? He studied her face carefully. There was something so familiar, so undeniable about her smile, the way her eyes sparkled with recognition and warmth. But years had passed, and time had changed both of them. He remembered a little girl with bright, curious eyes and a fearless spirit who used to run barefoot across fields, chasing butterflies and laughing at everything. That girl had been his best friend, his confidant, the person who had made his childhood feel magical. And now, standing before him as a grown woman, she carried the same essence that had left a mark on his heart long ago. "Can it really be you?" he asked, his voice low, tinged with both hope and disbelief. She nodded, her eyes never leaving his. "Yes, it's me." "I've waited a long time to see you again." Her voice was soft, yet it carried a strength that made him feel both comforted and nervous. The cowboy's mind began to flood with memories. He remembered the days they spent together by the river, skipping stones and sharing secrets. He remembered the afternoons when they would ride makeshift wooden horses, pretending to be cowboys and adventurers. He remembered the small promises they had made to each other, to always remember, to never forget, and to meet again someday. But life had pulled them apart. Her family had moved away suddenly, and he had never received a proper goodbye. He had tried to move on, to bury the memories, but a part of him had always held on to her image in his mind. Now, seeing her standing in front of him, all those memories came rushing back like a river breaking through a dam. His heart pounded in his chest, and he felt a strange mix of excitement, fear, and longing. He wanted to reach out, to hold her hand and never let go, but he hesitated. Was it really her, or was this some cruel trick of fate? "Fight! I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice rough. He took a careful step closer, studying her face again. "It's been so long. I mean, you look different, but familiar. I think I remember you."
She smiled, a gentle curve of her lips that warmed his chest.
I knew you would recognize me eventually. You may not remember every detail, but I never forgot you.
Not for a single day. The cowboy felt a lump form in his throat. The years of loneliness, of quiet evenings spent thinking about what could have been, came rushing forward. He realized how much he had missed her, how much he had longed to see her again, even without knowing it. And now, after all this time, she was here standing before him, real and alive, looking straight into his eyes. They walked slowly together through the fair, side by side, talking in small bursts as if afraid to break the fragile thread of connection that had suddenly reappeared. She told him about her life, how she had returned to the area to reconnect with her roots, and how she had always wondered what had happened to the boy who had once been her best friend. He listened, his heart swelling with emotions he could not fully name. As they talked, the cowboy noticed the little details that made her unmistakably her, the way she laughed at the same silly jokes, the way she tilted her head when she was curious, the intensity of her gaze when she was serious. Each small gesture brought memories rushing back, and with each memory he felt himself falling back into a connection he had thought was lost forever. The sun had fully set now, leaving a soft glow over the town as the fair continued into the evening. Lights twinkled in the distance, and the scent of roasted corn and sweet treats filled the air. The cowboy and the woman found a quiet spot near the edge of the fairgrounds where the sound of music and laughter softened. They sat on a low fence, talking and reminiscing, sharing stories of their childhood and the paths their lives had taken since then. For a long while they simply sat in silence, watching the stars begin to appear in the night sky. It was a comfortable, familiar silence, the kind that only exists between people who have shared a deep bond. The cowboy felt a sense of peace he had not known in years. It was as if the missing piece of his heart had finally been returned.
Yet, beneath the peace, there was a subtle tension, a quiet question that lingered between them.
Could this connection, rekindled after so many years, truly last? Would the paths they had walked separately allow them to find a future together? These questions hovered in the air, unspoken, but they did not diminish the joy of the reunion.
Finally, the woman spoke, breaking the silence.
"I know it's sudden and maybe it's overwhelming, but I had to find you. I had to see if the boy I knew was still there, somewhere inside the man you've become." The cowboy turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the soft light of the fair and the depth of his emotions. I'm glad you did," he said simply. "I've thought about you more than I realized." Yes.
And now that you're here, I don't want to let this go.
She reached out and lightly touched his arm, a gesture that carried both familiarity and newness, bridging the years between them. "Then don't," she whispered, grasp. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the distant sounds of the fair and the first stars of the evening, they both understood that this was the beginning of something important, something that had been waiting for years to be rediscovered. Something that could change the course of their lives forever. The cowboy smiled, a mix of relief, wonder, and anticipation in his expression. I think I've been waiting for this moment my whole life, he admitted. She smiled back, her eyes shining with a light that made his chest ache in the best possible way. And I've been waiting too, she said softly. As the night settled around them, they stayed there on the fence, side by side, sharing stories and memories, slowly rebuilding a connection that had never truly faded. The world around them was alive with laughter, music, and the gentle rustling of horses in the stables. But in that moment, it felt as though time had paused, allowing them to rediscover each other without interruption. And though neither of them knew what the future held, both felt a certainty that this reunion was more than chance. It was fate bringing them together again, reminding them of a bond that had endured distance, time, and circumstance. The cowboy and the woman, once childhood friends, now stood on the threshold of something new, a story that was theirs alone to write. The morning after the fair, the ranch was quiet, bathed in soft golden light. The cowboy woke early, as was his habit, letting the cool morning breeze fill the room. He couldn't stop thinking about the woman who had appeared so suddenly the night before. He replayed every word she had said, every expression on her face, and the warmth of her presence. He felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness, emotions he hadn't felt in years. Outside, the horses neighed softly as they were fed. The cowboy moved among them, completing his morning chores with careful precision. But his mind kept drifting back to her. She had said she had waited years to find him, and he realized that in all the time they had been apart, neither of them had forgotten. The thought made his chest tighten with a feeling he could only describe as both longing and relief. By mid-morning, she arrived at the ranch. She had spent the night in the nearby town, making sure she wouldn't arrive too early and startle him. When she appeared at the gate, he felt his heart leap again. She smiled, a smile that reminded him of sunlit afternoons in his childhood, of laughter shared without care, of moments that had left an imprint on his heart. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice carrying a warmth that made the cowboy feel at ease. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady despite the rush of emotion.
I was just finishing up with the horses. You're here early.
"Bye. I wanted to see where you live," she said, stepping closer. "I've imagined it so many times, and now it's real." He guided her through the ranch, showing her the stables, the fields, and the small barn where he kept tools and supplies. She moved quietly, touching the fences, looking at the horses with genuine interest, and asking questions about each animal. He noticed the way she remembered small details about animals, like which ones preferred certain foods or which ones were shy around strangers. It reminded him of how attentive she had always been as a child, how she noticed everything and cared for everyone no matter how small. As they walked, she began to share memories from their childhood. "Do you remember the river behind your old house?" she asked, her eyes bright.
We used to spend hours there making up stories about pirates and treasure. You always wanted to be the captain, and I was the first mate who saved you from imaginary storms.
He laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet morning. "I remember. You always made the games more interesting. I don't know if I ever really won when we played, but I didn't mind. Being with you made it fun no matter what." Her smile softened.
I've never forgotten those days. Even when my family moved, I thought about you.
I wondered if you were still the same boy I knew, if you had grown into someone good, someone kind. The cowboy's chest tightened at her words.
He realized how much he had hoped, even secretly, that she had remembered him too. The years apart had been long, and he had buried his feelings under work and routine. But now they were back, and the emotions he had tried to suppress surged forward. Bay. They spent the morning together, working with the horses. She asked if she could help, and he watched as she handled the animals with care and confidence. Bay. She brushed the horses, fed them, and even helped him saddle one for a short ride. The ease with which she moved among the animals impressed him. She was strong, graceful, and completely in her element. "You've changed a lot," he said at one point, handing her a brush. "But some things haven't changed at all."
You still have that way of making everything feel lighter, easier? She laughed softly, brushing a dark bay horse.
"I suppose some things don't change. Some parts of us stay the same no matter how much time passes." They rode together across the fields, the wind rushing past them as the horses galloped through the open plains. The cowboy couldn't remember the last time he had felt so free, so alive. Every moment with her brought back memories of their childhood, of promises made and laughter shared. He realized that the connection they had as children had never truly faded. It had just waited, like a seed buried in the soil, ready to grow again. After the ride, they sat under a large oak tree, catching their breath and enjoying the warmth of the sun. She turned to him, her expression serious, but gentle. "I know this may seem sudden," she said. "We've been apart for so long, and so much has happened in our lives. But I needed to see you, to know if we could find something real again." He looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. He had spent years protecting his heart, afraid of disappointment and loss. But looking into her eyes, he felt a sense of certainty he hadn't felt in a long time. "I've thought about you for years," he admitted. "I never stopped hoping that one day we might meet again. And now that you're here, I don't want to let this slip away." She reached out and touched his hand, a simple gesture that spoke volumes.
"Then we won't," she said softly. Over the next few days, they spent as much time together as possible.
They worked on the ranch, shared meals, and walked through the nearby fields and hills, talking about everything and nothing. Each conversation deepened their connection, revealing the ways their lives had shaped them and the ways they had remained true to themselves. She told him about her journey, about the years she had spent away, and the challenges she had faced. She had moved between towns, worked various jobs, and learned to stand on her own feet, all while holding on to the memories of her childhood and the bond she had shared with him. He shared his own story, the struggles of running the ranch alone, the moments of loneliness and the small joys that had kept him going. In sharing their stories, they found understanding, empathy, and a renewed sense of closeness. One afternoon, as they were repairing a fence together, she paused and looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever wonder why life brought us back together?" she asked. He considered her question, feeling the sun warm his back and the gentle sway of the horses nearby. "I think maybe it was never really about timing," he said. "Maybe it's about finding the right moment, the moment when we're ready to see what we've been missing all along." She smiled, a soft, contented smile that made his chest feel light.
I think you're right.
And I think that moment is now. The days passed in a comfortable rhythm, each one strengthening the bond between them. They laughed, they reminisced, and they faced small challenges together, discovering that their partnership was natural and easy, like the flow of a river. The cowboy found himself looking at her in a new way, seeing not just the childhood friend he had loved, but the strong, capable, and compassionate woman she had become. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, they sat on the porch of the ranch house watching the horizon. She leaned against him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. "Brave." He wrapped an arm around her, feeling the steady warmth of her presence. "I never imagined this," she said quietly. I thought I had lost you forever. You didn't lose me, he replied, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I think we were just waiting for the right time. They sat in silence, letting the quiet evening speak for them. The connection between them had grown stronger with each passing day, and both of them felt the certainty that their bond was real, enduring, and worth nurturing. The past had shaped them, but it no longer held them back. As night fell and the first stars appeared, they knew that their journey together was only beginning. The memories of childhood had rekindled the spark, and now, as adults, they had the chance to build something new, something lasting, and something beautiful. The cowboy realized that life had given him a rare gift. In finding her again, he had rediscovered not only the love he had felt as a child, but also a deeper understanding of himself and what truly mattered. And she, too, understood that coming back to him had brought closure, healing, and a renewed sense of hope for the future. In those quiet moments on the ranch, with the horses resting nearby and the night sky stretching endlessly above, they shared a feeling that words could not fully capture. It was a mixture of love, trust, and the joy of being understood completely. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with promise, laughter, and the kind of connection that only comes once in a lifetime. And though the days ahead would bring challenges, uncertainties, and moments of doubt, they both knew that together they could face anything. Because this time, they had found each other, and nothing could take that away. The days following their reunion passed in a blend of happiness and quiet anticipation. The cowboy and the Apache woman, his childhood friend, had begun to find a rhythm together. They worked side by side on the ranch, rode horses across the plains, and shared stories deep into the evenings. Their laughter was easy, their conversations flowing naturally, and the warmth between them grew with every passing day. Yet beneath this joyful reunion, subtle challenges began to emerge, ones that neither of them had fully expected. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon and painted the fields in soft gold, the woman received a message that made her pause. It was from her family, reminding her of her responsibilities back home and asking her to return for a short visit. She had promised to visit earlier, and they insisted that she come without delay. She looked at the cowboy, her expression a mixture of regret and worry. I have to go, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. It's just for a few days, but I wish I didn't have to leave. He nodded, trying to mask the pang in his chest. I understand, he said. Family comes first, but promise me you'll come back. She reached out and took his hand, her grip firm and reassuring. I promise, she said, her eyes locking with his. Nothing could keep me away for long. Babe, I want to be here with you. Even as she left, the cowboy felt a knot in his stomach. The ranch suddenly seemed emptier, the quiet more noticeable. He busied himself with work, riding the horses, repairing fences, and managing the daily routines, but his mind kept wandering to her. He thought about the short time they had together, the connection that had rekindled so beautifully, and he worried about whether her absence might create distance between them. Meanwhile, she traveled back to her family's home, a small but lively place nestled among hills and trees. Her family welcomed her warmly, but she noticed the subtle tension in their eyes when they asked about her life at the ranch. They had heard rumors about the cowboy and seemed cautious, even protective. She sensed their concern, but she knew her heart and her choices. Breaths. She tried to explain her feelings gently, speaking of the bond she had with the cowboy, the shared memories of childhood, and the connection they had rediscovered. They may not understand now, she thought, but I know what I feel, and I won't let anyone take this away from me. Back at the ranch, the cowboy continued his daily routine, but the absence of the woman was felt deeply. He missed her laughter, her steady presence, and the way she seemed to understand him without words. Friends in town noticed a change in him. He was quieter than usual, distracted, and at times lost in thought. Yet, whenever he closed his eyes, he could picture her riding beside him, brushing a horse's mane, or sharing a small joke. A few days later, she returned to the ranch. The reunion was quiet at first, filled with small gestures and shy smiles rather than grand words. They embraced, and in that moment, the world around them seemed to pause. The distance, the worries, and the brief separation melted away, leaving only the certainty that they belonged together. However, the calm did not last long. Word of her presence on the ranch began to spread through the town and to her family and community. Some were curious, others cautious. There were whispers questioning the relationship. Was the cowboy truly trustworthy? Did he have the right intentions? Could a bond that had been lost for so many years survive the challenges of adult life? The woman felt the weight of these questions, and though she was confident in her feelings, she could not ignore the tension that began to build around them. She wanted to protect their relationship from outside influence, but she also knew that she could not hide her presence or her choices from the world. One afternoon, as they were preparing the horses for a long ride, the cowboy noticed a group of townspeople approaching. Some were friendly, nodding and greeting him, but others lingered with curious, questioning expressions. Among them were a few who knew her family and seemed hesitant, as if testing the waters before speaking. "Is everything all right?" she asked quietly, sensing his unease. He took a deep breath and nodded.
I think so, just people are curious, that's all.
But the townspeople lingered, asking polite questions but occasionally making remarks that hinted at doubt. "It's been many years," one elder said. "You've both changed. Are you sure this will work?" The woman smiled gently but firmly. "We are sure," she replied. "We know our past, we know our feelings, and we are committed to understanding each other now." Even in the face of judgment or doubt, she remained calm and self-assured.
It reminded him of why he had loved her as a child. The strength of her spirit, the clarity of her heart, and the kindness that guided her every action.
As the weeks passed, the couple faced more challenges. One day, while riding through a distant part of the ranch, a sudden storm swept over the plains. The wind howled, the rain poured in sheets, and the horses grew nervous under the heavy sky. The cowboy took the lead, guiding the horses through the storm, while she stayed close, her hand gripping his arm for support. In that moment, they realized how much they relied on each other, not just for physical safety, but for emotional strength. After the storm passed, they reached the barn, soaked and exhausted, but relieved. They shared a quiet moment, looking into each other's eyes, realizing that the trials they faced only made their bond stronger. "We can handle anything," he said, his voice steady. "As long as we face it together," she nodded, smiling through the raindrops that clung to her hair. "Together?" she echoed, bait. Yet the real challenge came not from storms or work, but from misunderstandings. One evening, a small disagreement arose over how to manage part of the ranch. Words were exchanged, emotions flared, and for a brief moment both felt the old fear of separation creeping in. The cowboy stepped back, trying to calm himself. "I don't want to fight with you," he said. "We're stronger than this. Let's find a solution. Together." Breaths. She took his hand, her touch gentle and reassuring.
I know.
We just need to listen to each other, that's all.
They spent the night talking, clearing the misunderstanding and reaffirming their trust. That evening, under the soft glow of lanterns, they realized that love was not just about joy and laughter. It was also about patience, understanding, and compromise. They promised each other that no challenge would break the connection they had fought so hard to rediscover. As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew deeper. The cowboy began to notice small gestures that reminded him of the woman he had loved as a child, and yet he was amazed at how much she had grown.
She was confident, intelligent, and wise beyond her years, yet the warmth of her heart remained unchanged.
She, in turn, saw in him a man who had matured, whose patience and strength had deepened, and who still carried the gentle heart she had always cherished. One afternoon, while they were working together in the fields, they noticed smoke rising in the distance. A small wildfire had started near the edge of the ranch, likely from a lightning strike. Without hesitation, they grabbed buckets, hoses, and tools, working together to contain the fire. The heat, the smoke, and the danger forced them to rely on each other completely, testing their coordination, trust, and quick thinking.
By the time the fire was under control, they were exhausted, covered in soot and sweat, but victorious.
They collapsed together under a tree, their hands intertwined, breathing heavily. The cowboy looked at her, admiration and love shining in his eyes. "I can't imagine doing this with anyone else," he said. She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder.
"And I wouldn't want to. We're a team, always."
The experiences of the past weeks had taught them something important. Life was unpredictable, and challenges would come, but facing them together made them stronger. Their connection was no longer just a rekindled memory from childhood. It had become a living, breathing bond that could withstand hardships, misunderstandings, and even danger. That evening, as they sat by the barn under a sky full of stars, the cowboy realized how deeply he had fallen for her all over again. It was not the innocent affection of childhood, but a profound love built on respect, trust, and shared experiences. She had become an integral part of his life, someone whose presence made everything brighter and whose absence left an emptiness he could not ignore. She, too, felt a similar certainty. She had found in him not only the boy she had loved, but also a man whose heart was steady, reliable, and open. Together they had faced the storms of life, both literal and figurative, and had emerged stronger, more connected, and more certain of the bond that had brought them back together. As the night deepened and the quiet of the ranch settled around them, they sat close, hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison. They had faced doubts, challenges, and fears, yet here they were, stronger and more united than ever. The trials had tested them, but they had not broken them. Instead, they had solidified the understanding that true connection, once found, could endure any obstacle. And as they finally rested, side by side under the endless sky, both knew that whatever challenges awaited in the future, they would face them together.
Undaunted, unwavering, and united by a bond that had begun in childhood and had grown into something timeless and unbreakable.
The morning air on the ranch felt fresher than ever. After weeks of working together, facing challenges, and slowly building a life side by side, the cowboy and the Apache woman had grown even closer. Their days were no longer just about work or memories. They were about the present and the future they wanted to create together. There was a quiet joy in their routines, a harmony that only comes when two people truly understand each other. That day, they decided to ride farther than usual, exploring the hills beyond the ranch. The sun was warm on their backs, the sky wide and clear, and the horses moved steadily beneath them. For a moment, it felt as though the world belonged entirely to them. They laughed at small things, joked about childhood memories, and shared quiet observations about the landscape around them. As they reached the crest of a hill, the woman pointed to the valley below. Breaths.
"Look at that," she said softly. "It's beautiful."
just like when we used to imagine our adventures as children. He looked at her, seeing the sparkle in her eyes, the way her smile caught the sunlight. We didn't know then how much life would bring us back here, he said. Bah.
But I think this is exactly where we're supposed to be.
They rode down into the valley together, feeling the wind whip past them. The horses trotted along a narrow path, and for the first time in years, both felt completely at peace. No past regrets, no worries about the future, just the present, shared between them. After reaching a quiet spot near a small stream, they dismounted and led their horses to drink. The sound of the water rushing over the rocks filled the air, and they sat together on the bank, dipping their hands into the cool stream. She looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice calm but full of emotion. "All these years I've carried memories of you with me. I never stopped thinking about us, about the bond we shared as children. And now that we've found each other again, I don't want to imagine life without you."
He reached for her hand, holding it tightly.
I feel the same way, he said. I've spent so many years wondering if I would ever see you again, if we could ever feel what we once had.
And now, I know that life has given me a second chance, and I won't waste it. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the sound of the stream and the rustling trees surround them. It was a peaceful silence, one that carried understanding, trust, and a quiet promise. Each knew that the path ahead would not always be easy, but they had already faced so much together. Whatever came next, they were ready. As they walked back to the ranch, the cowboy noticed the small details that made her presence so important in his life. The way she laughed, the way she noticed the smallest things, and the gentle confidence she carried. He realized how much she had shaped his understanding of love, trust, and partnership. Back at the ranch, they worked on their usual tasks, feeding horses, repairing fences, and tending to the fields. Yet even amidst the routine, there was a sense of celebration in the air. Every shared glance, every touch, every word was a reminder of the bond they had rediscovered and the life they were building together. Later that evening, they prepared a small dinner outside on the porch. The sky turned shades of orange, pink, and purple, the stars beginning to peek out above the horizon. The woman brought freshly baked bread, and the cowboy brought a jug of water and some simple cheese. It was a modest meal, but the atmosphere was filled with warmth, comfort, and shared contentment. As they ate, the conversation turned to the future. "Have you thought about what comes next?" he asked, looking into her eyes. She nodded. "I want to stay here with you, to build a life together. We've waited so long, and I don't want to wait any longer. I want us to be a part of each other's lives, every day, in every way." He felt his heart swell at her words. "I want the same thing," he said. "We've been given a second chance, and I don't want to let it slip away. Bear, you and I, we're stronger together. Whatever comes, we'll face it side by side." The night grew darker, and the stars shone brighter. They cleaned up the small dinner, then sat quietly on the porch, leaning against each other. The gentle night sounds of the ranch, the soft neighing of horses, the distant hoot of an owl, the whisper of the wind through the trees, created a perfect backdrop for their quiet contentment. As the hours passed, the cowboy felt the courage to speak about something he had kept in his heart for a long time. "There's something I want to ask you," he said, his voice low but steady. "I've thought about it for weeks, and I can't imagine waiting any longer." She looked at him, her eyes filled with curiosity and warmth. "What is it?" she asked softly. He took a deep breath. reaching for her hands and holding them gently. I want us to build a life together, officially. I want you by my side, not just as my childhood friend, not just as someone I love, but as my partner in every way. Will you stay with me, forever? Her eyes widened slightly, and for a moment the quiet of the night seemed to stretch endlessly. Then, slowly, a smile broke across her face, radiant and full of love.
Yes, she whispered.
Yes, I will stay with you. I've been waiting for this moment my entire life, and now it's here. They embraced, holding each other tightly, letting the quiet night witness their joy. For the first time in years, they felt completely whole, as if every moment of waiting, every challenge, and every separation had led them to this very instant. The days that followed were filled with plans, laughter, and shared dreams. They worked together to improve the ranch, planting new crops, repairing old structures, and caring for the horses. Every task became an opportunity to strengthen their partnership, to support one another, and to celebrate the bond they had rediscovered. One afternoon, while taking a break under their favorite oak tree, the woman looked at him thoughtfully. "I think about the day we were separated," she said softly. "Burse. It hurt so much, leaving without saying goodbye. But now I understand that life had to bring us back together at the right time."
He nodded, holding her close.
I've thought about it too. Maybe we were both meant to grow, to learn and to find each other again stronger than before.
It makes this reunion even more meaningful.
As the seasons changed, their relationship grew deeper.
They learned to communicate without fear, to support one another through challenges, and to celebrate each small victory together. Their love became a quiet force that shaped every day, bringing warmth, comfort, and resilience to their lives. The town, too, began to accept their relationship. Neighbors and friends saw the strength of their bond, the respect they showed each other, and the happiness that radiated from both. Even her family, who had once been cautious and protective, came to understand that their connection was genuine and enduring.
One crisp autumn evening, the cowboy and the woman stood at the edge of the ranch, watching the sun set over the rolling hills.
The colors were breathtaking, a mix of gold, orange, and red, reflecting the warmth and depth of their shared journey.
"I never imagined life could feel this full," she said softly, leaning against him.
All the years apart, all the waiting. It was worth it, because now we have each other. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, feeling the steady rhythm of her heart against his chest. Everything we've been through, every challenge, every moment of doubt, it led us here. And I wouldn't change a thing. We have something rare and beautiful, and I'll protect it every day of my life. Past day. They stayed there in silence, letting the beauty of the evening fill them with peace and gratitude. The world felt vast and alive, but in that moment it was just the two of them, standing together, ready to face whatever came next. As night fell and stars blanketed the sky, the cowboy and the woman made a small fire by the barn. They sat together, holding hands and talking quietly, their hearts full of love and hope. Every glance, every touch, every word carried a promise that no matter what life brought, they would face it together, unwavering and united. In the weeks and months that followed, they continued to build their life on the ranch, growing closer with every shared experience. They faced challenges, sure, but none that could break the connection they had fought so hard to rediscover. Their love was steady, strong, and true. A love that had survived distance, time, and doubt, and had emerged even stronger because of it. And in the quiet moments when they sat side by side watching the horses graze or the sun rise over the hills, they both knew that this was just the beginning. Life would continue to bring surprises, challenges, and moments of doubt, but they were ready. Together they had found something rare, something timeless, and something that could endure anything, because they had each other, and that was enough. The cowboy and the Apache woman, once childhood friends, separated by circumstance, now shared a bond that would last a lifetime. They had found each other again, and this time nothing would pull them apart. And as the stars twinkled above the quiet ranch, they sat together, hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison, knowing that the story they were writing was theirs alone, one filled with love, trust, and the joy of finding a home not just in a place but in each other.